Hi folks, I'm going to go ahead and walk you through my final project for EDT 537. So you'll have to excuse me if there's any background noise. It's the last full day of school and I have like 3 free blocks in a row. So, but there's still a lot of commotion outside. So the project is called the Inclusive Voices Project, and it's already part of the curriculum here where I work. I've just kind of adapted it to fit more of like a blended, flipped, or online model. So I created a Google Classroom page because I felt like that was probably the easiest way to organize all of the materials and show you what it would look like from a student's perspective. So right here on the stream, I have an example of what a day's agenda might look like. Where I'm just kind of talking about the flipped lesson one of the flipped lessons that I'm planning on doing. And so I will get into that a little bit later, but I just wanted to kind of like have that there as an example. So if we go to the classwork tab, I have all of the work organized week by week. So week 1 is really that introductory week where we go over the materials and the expectations for the project and kind of start brainstorming a little bit. Week 2, we start getting into some more flipped lessons and some blended lessons, as well as some group work. And then week 3 is book clubs, and so that one's not quite as thoroughly filled out at this point, but I'll explain as we get closer to it. Week 4 is Tech Expert Week, and so there's a flipped lesson as well as kind of a station rotation setup, and I'll show you that. And then we have more Padlet creation, project sharing, so peer feedback, and then I have a station, or not a station, but a section for general materials, and most of these are book club related materials. So coming back up to week 1, right here on this particular material, I have posted the Inclusive Voices Project just kind of outline. And so this document has the essential questions, the SMART goals, the standards assessed, and then basic instructions. And I felt like I had to keep them basic so that there was more room for students to explore their own talents and their own skills and strengths. I've created rubrics for each kind of part of the project. So initially these rubrics were all just one big clump of rubrics, and what I wanted to do was separate them into the different assessments that we'll be doing over the course of the quarter so that it would be easier to kind of figure out what exactly are we assessing each assessment. So we have book club meetings and preparation, we have research and writing process, we have the final project coming up here, there we go, and then we have the final presentations. So that way I am able to assess each of the standards multiple times, but I don't have to sift through all of the standards for every single assessment and figure out which one applies and which one doesn't. I also, you'll have access to this, but I also made sure that they're framed as I can statements for each part of the rubric, because sometimes rubrics can be really overwhelming, especially to middle schoolers. So as I have implemented this project this year, there are a few things that I noticed that I want to do differently next year. So the first is to introduce a list of possible inclusive voices topics that students can use. So their goal is to choose a topic, so some kind of social issue that they see in their school community or greater community. They should be able to explain the issue, explain its implications and how it might impact people in their community, and then propose a possible solution for the problem. And so we got, part of the way through the project this year before I realized that people were really having a hard time coming up with, I don't want to say appropriate projects, but I guess rich enough projects is maybe the better way to phrase it. So I have a big long list, and I've made it clear to them that they don't have to choose from this list, but I'm hoping that it will give them a better idea of what I'm looking for. And then I also have a list of suggested projects that they could follow through with. And again, they don't have to do one of these. I had a student this year who made an illustrated alphabet for his topic, which was really cool. So So in the first week, I want to kind of mine for ideas for my students. And so on this particular assignment, I just posed a question, and they have to go through and answer the question. And then I can kind of look at their responses and try to kind of workshop with them possible topics, or how can we tweak a topic to make it kind of fit a little bit better. So in week 2, I have a flipped lesson right here where they watch a TED Talk by Chimamanda Adichie called The Danger of a Single Story. It's one of my favorite ones. And they're going to be using what they learned from this video basically throughout the week. So I asked them to explain, to like pull any important, impactful, or interesting quotes that they want to share with the class. And so I made sure to note that on the Edpuzzle as well as right here, but I'll show you on the Edpuzzle. So as they start the Edpuzzle, there should be a note that pops up that tells them, that reminds them what they need to be doing before they even jump into the video, because I want to make sure to direct their focus. So I may not let this play because it could take a little bit. Oh, there it goes. All right, so it pops up with a note, a reminder that this is what they need to be focusing on. And then as they watch, there are some questions. So the next thing is this flipped lesson as well. Part of their blended lesson on day 2 is giving feedback to each other on their ideas that they have so far for their projects. And so I created another Edpuzzle video talking about what is feedback. We talk about the RISE model and my expectations for actually providing feedback to their peers. So I have used that in my class, and it actually went really well. So this is what is on the agenda on the stream. And so this is just kind of a rundown of the different stations that they'll go through for their blended learning lesson. So they have a Padlet that I'll show you in just a second, where they're going to share the quotes that they pulled from that TED Talk that they watched, and discuss the quotes, their importance, the impact, why they were interested in them. There's a station where they are going to be brainstorming their Inclusive Voices project ideas and getting feedback from their peers, and there's a form that they'll fill out, which I'll show you. There's a research station where they get to kind of work on their research pathways, and there's another worksheet where they can fill out a question web so that they can kind of figure out where they want to explore within their topic. And then there's a station where they can get some feedback from me, and this will be a little bit easier for me because I can give small group feedback. I can work with individual students. This year I had 16 kids in the class, so each group would only have 4 students in it. So that's a lot easier to deal with. So this is the Padlet that they'll be working with, and I made sure to put the directions, but also an example of what I'm looking for, made it so that they can comment on each other's posts. And then this is the peer feedback form. So I tried to be clear that the feedback needs to be specific. So I asked about, does the project address goals? What steps has your partner taken toward their goals? What specific steps can your partner take to continue? Are the steps manageable in the time we have? And checking in with, does your partner fully understand what they need to do to move forward? And if not, what information do they need to help them better understand? This form has worked better than any of the other feedback forms that I've done in the past, so I'm pretty happy with that. The only confusion is that they forgot to give their feedback forms to the person they were giving feedback to, so we have to kind of revisit that a little bit. For their research station, I have created a question web, and I ideally would have printed copies of this, but I always have digital copies of things too. And so the idea was to put a research question, so whether it's an essential question or something that they have come up with, right in the middle here. And then each of these little boxes they could fill out with subtopics or sub-questions that they want to look into as they research. Some kids may find this helpful, some may not, but it's there as a tool if they want it. So then that same week, they will be looking into different cultures, and so I'll show you the presentation here. But basically, they work in groups to research different cultures and then share out with the rest of the class. So they would pick a topic. So each of these is hyperlinked to an article from Common Lit about whatever the topic is. Whoops. And I guess we're going to look at it. There we go. But then they have to create their own slides. And so I'll show you some of the examples that I had from this year. So we have dragon boat racing, Dia de los Muertos, Hawaiian foods, totem pole carving. So the list goes on, but and I obviously took off their names and any pictures of themselves that they put on there for FERPA purposes, but ended up being a really interesting glimpse into different cultures. So, whoops. Next, I probably don't need to go through every single one. So in the book club week, they have 15 different roles that they can choose from for their book club meetings. So each book club is reading the same book. And so each member would have a different role, and they can't have the same role twice. So we spend some time at the beginning of the week kind of prepping, and then towards the end of the week we do the actual meeting itself. And then I will go over Tech Expert Day because I think it's going to be really fun. But basically I'm going to have my students research and start using a tech tool that they have never used before. So I created kind of a master list that has a link to the website where they can kind of look into reviews or explanations of what it does, and then a how-to video. And so once they have done that research, so the flipped part of this is to do that research and practice the tool. But once they've done that, we're going to have a few days that week where they present their findings and teach their classmates about it. And so I have a checklist of everything that they should have, but I'll show you the blended lesson. So it's a little bit, it might be a little bit confusing just because I obviously don't have student names assigned right here, so I just kind of labeled them A, B, C, D, E. But I made it so that 5 students would be presenting each day, because we only have, 3 days. And then each day, the rest of the students who are not presenting would be rotating. So it would only be 2 students rotating through each station at a time, which I think makes it far less terrifying for those who are presenting. So they'd have 5 to 10 minutes per station because they don't need a whole big, long presentation. And then I kind of showed the rotation schedule. So F and G to A, B, C, D, E, and then the next pairing would start at B and rotate through. So you can look at that a little closer if you want to, but it was a little confusing just because, like I said, I didn't have student names to put in. So next we have week 5 where they get to share more of their project with the class. So I made an Edpuzzle showing them how to create a Padlet. And I also made a video showing them how to create a Google Classroom post, because their expectations for this are to create their own Padlet where they upload any Inclusive Voices project materials and then have their peers give them feedback. And so in order to do that, they needed to also know how to create a Padlet and how to then post the link to the Padlet on Google Classroom. So I have, these 2 videos to help them do that. And then that first day of week 5 is when they get to do the feedback. And then that's about it. Week 5 is also going to be project presentations where they actually get to present finally in front of the whole class. So that would be, probably days 3 through 5. So I will go ahead and also share the Google Classroom code so that if you wanted to join and really look at the materials, you can definitely do that. But it also is written right here. So I'll make sure it's posted in a couple of different places. So that's what I got.